Hello, my name is Crystal Puentes, and this week's Ethics Corner is to discuss the purpose of the Institutional Review Board, or the IRB, and how it addresses human subject research concerns, discuss the federal government regulations and requirements are for human research, including vulnerable populations, explore how the Tuskegee Alabama syphilis study impacted legal and ethical research concerns. So, in our nursing research book on page 240, it goes over what the Institutional Review Board is. So, they review studies to assess the ethical standards that are met in relation to the protection of rights of human subjects. They are responsible for protecting subjects from undue risk and loss of personal rights and dignity. And they also have their Code of Federal Regulations. It's on page 241 and it's on box 13.3. So what they do is make sure that that the research satisfies that the risk of the subjects are minimized. Risks to subjects are reasonable in relation to anticipated benefits. Selection of the subjects is adequate. Informed consent must be and will be sought out. Informed consent form must be properly documented. And when appropriate, the research plan makes adequate provisions for monitoring data collection to ensure subject safety. There are adequate provisions to protect subject privacy and confidentiality of data, so like HIPAA, and where some or all the subjects are likely to be vulnerable to coercion or undue influence, additional safety guards are included. So the purpose of the IRB is actually really more important than we think because the population or the patients that they use in these researches are actually pretty vulnerable if they're not if they actually don't really know what's going on. If information is being withheld, of course, they're not going to really know what's going on or what they're signing up for. And, sometimes these research groups, they can offer things that could make them be like, oh, okay, well, oh, for money or oh, for this, then I'll go ahead and do it. It doesn't sound like that bad of a research. I'll go ahead and do it. So that's pretty much what the IRB does, is protects people from that, It's easy for these research groups to kind of make it seem like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. This is what we're doing, but in reality, what they're doing can actually affect them physically and mentally and, affect their families and everything. So, I've actually already spoken about the Tuskegee research study in a previous ethics corner. It had already stuck out to me from when I had first heard about it. But basically, it's a study that took place in Alabama, and it consisted of black males in a research. Basically, the study wanted to find out what the long-term effects of syphilis was. And at the time that the study started, penicillin, it hadn't been discovered yet that was like the cure for it. So at that time, they started the study and they wanted to know long-term effects. They had told these males that were that had syphilis, even though they didn't generally know that's what they had. I think they kind of just buried what they had. They just told them they had some sort of blood disease, and that they were going to treat them, and that they were going to have free medical care, which we all know that's gold. So they were like, oh, okay, well, sounds great. So they went ahead and did it. Years into the research, I want to say it's 15, 20 years, they go into it and they end up finding out that, penicillin is the number one treatment for it. However, they did not treat the men. They let them, continue on with the syphilis, let it, keep, evolving in their bodies. They kept spreading it to other people. And unfortunately, because of this, because they never received treatment, even though they were told they were going to be receiving treatment, they didn't. Because of that, a lot of them ended up dying. Not even just them, but their wives, kids were affected. They were born with it, or they, spread it. So basically, it ended up affecting a lot more people than just the 600 men that they started out with. And this is what caused like a lot of attention on the study, was because it was really tragic that because of their like selfish wants, that they wanted to find out you know what the long-term effects were, they tricked these men into thinking that they were being treated, and they weren't. And that's why it just was such a shocking study. So many people probably couldn't believe it, and it just went so far into becoming a class action suit. They had to pretty much compensate all the families, and there's not really anything that you could really fix. Like, you can't fix that. Those men died, their wives died. They were just permanently affected. You can give them like free health care after, but I mean, or free burial too, but that doesn't exactly fix anything. So that's why now they have the IRB, stuff like that in place to prevent that from ever happening again, because that's just so unethical. And it was all because they just wanted one thing, despite the fact that, they were willing to put other people at risk, knowing, that they would get sicker just to get the information that they wanted. It is really an unfortunate study. So that is why the IRB is in place, and it is a great thing. It's sad that people do have bad intentions on studies, and that's why they have to go through the IRB to get approved, to make sure that they're not harming any of the participants, that the participants are well aware of what's going on, that they have fully consented, that their privacy is protected. It is a really good thing, and I'm glad that they put that in place. But I think that about covers it. Thank you for listening.